sure I'm sure there's a whole inner world of people that know what's happening. The rabbis? Brrr! I don't know.
It's warmer than it was.
Really? It just feels chilly in here. I don't know.
Because they still outdoors.
Right?
Testing 1, 2. Testing. We're going to shut this one off.
Wait, it's really funny though.
Exercising?
Wait, what? I think the sound.
So he was watching people doing
Yeah,
that.
right. It's too funny. Yeah, it's better without the sound.
I call it guitar. He plays the guitar key. The big one.
Oh, E?
E, G major.
Is it colder than this in your house?
Not when we have the heat on, but it goes down. Last night it was like not so bad. It was like 55, I think, when I woke up, which wasn't so bad. But it's
Yeah.
cold, you know.
It's definitely cold at night.
I just don't need to be crazy now. It's just like
First of all, it's a waste of money.
I don't wood
You don't want to be in that heat either. The wood
We
floors.
might have to leave.
We have tile and wood floors on the first floor. The second floor is all covered.
Well, there's no insulation on what's up. Like the wall to the thing is like pristine. Like there's nothing.
Yeah,
They just make it
our
for
insulation's not great. I mean, because of the windows. Yeah.
That's gonna be way too loud.
It's like, well, she's done with her gig. Excuse me, she came out Wednesday.
Mark? Mark Koshmer? Mark Koshmer, the violinist? Is it Mark? Koshmer? He's a person in my film. Yeah, but the
It's a woman sitting next to what's his name? Who's the guy?
So these people hired Jeff Stern, the drummer, told me about some idiots he built with very steam, Iran. Anyway, like a quartet for a 2-hour quartet. He calls me today and says, it looks like the gig is about to cancel because the people are crazy. They want now Yiddish singer. I said, no, I have this just a Yiddish. Oh, okay. Give me your information. I give her the next thing she texts me. I think I convinced them not to have the singer. And then she responds, I'm in New York. I just got a call to do filler number. Lisa. Somebody got fired last minute, and she got hired last minute too. So she was on a plane next day. That was so funny. Because Lisa just called me like a month ago and said, I need you in LA. Get me the gig, please average, anybody needs a singer. So, well, I will have my eyes on it. But it's like, who would hire a Yiddish singer nowadays unless it's like a Yiddish concert of some sort? And I'm not invited to that. Usually it's some other people. It's like LA is not very.
What kind of gig is it?
It's more New York.
Is it a wedding?
I think so. It was like it would be like 2 hours. One big set, cocktail and reception, like non-stop, but done great. And, but if it stays the same, I'm playing my fun gig. Mostly klezmer, maybe some jazz. Actually, why did you ever jazz? Their own is great, great guitar player. I love it. He's the guy who was at Peretz. You know what's so funny? So they having a party now. And I hear at the end of the gig, it's like, he said, and on the guitar, he was like, I'm so much jealous of his girl. Lady. He was like, oh, you like there's a rivalry between them. I don't know. But anyway, so, but Peter is like, he's a different era, different place. He's not.
Or wants to play some notes on the keyboard so he
I
can
think
start.
his wife is Jewish, but
She is? He's not Jewish. He's not Jewish.
Peter is, but he doesn't look.
What's his last name?
Curtis. So how do you like that thing with Kanye West and then Chappelle? It's
Well, they do run the media.
They look like real. Kanye look like he's
But they run they do run.
They're not related.
They run the industry. It's true, they do.
Yeah, he just said what it is. He's just crazy. He was crazy to say something like that. He was just reflection, I'm sure.
He got pissed because
His wife is out there.
he's not looking
A
at
lot of it. He made a big stuff. Because Kardashians, I'm sure, they probably look like
Where's Susan? Oh, there she is, right there.
I'm not playing any foot today. I mean, just
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. If you would take your seats, we would like to begin.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is a better microphone. If you would take your seats. To be careful.
Because of you, I left my family for Shabbat, and I'm here and I brought my members of the Yiddish Club, a few of them, okay?
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As you are taking your seats, you're already doing what I want to ask you to do, which is turn to someone and say hello and Shabbat Shalom. And before we begin our service, I'd like to remind you to please make sure your cell phones are turned to silent or turned off.
We're going to begin this evening on page 10 in your Siddur, page 10. Please join us in singing Hina Matov. How beautiful it is for all of us to be together to pray. טוב מראים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב מראים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב מראים אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ורעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ורעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, טוב ובנאים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב הנה מה טוב לה 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 הנה מה טוב הנה מה טוב לה 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 הנה מה טוב ובנאים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב ובנאים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב לה 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 הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב לה 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 הנה מה טוב עניים שבת אחים גם יחד הנה מה טוב עניים שבת אחים גם יחד.
So some weeks we have one bar bat mitzvah, some weeks we have two. Tonight and tomorrow we have three. So we would like to invite Lexi Cohen and her mom, Nasi, up, and Nathan Kasper and his mom, Natalia, up, and Zena Wilhelm and her mom, Alia, up to light the Shabbat candles. Please turn to page 3.
Page 3. All right. We light our candles. And as they do light these candles, we bring that special light of Shabbat into our spirit, into our thoughts, into our souls. and we join together in the blessing of the Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
A lot of you know that the cantor and I are going to be performing a story. A lot of you know that the cantor and I are going to be performing a story later on, and it will involve a lot of angels. And we're going to invite some of those angels into our midst right now on page 24 as we sing Shalom Aleichem, hello, welcome, angels of peace.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShareh, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedechem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei HaMalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
I also want to take this moment to say Shabbat Shalom to those of you who are watching at home. We know you're with us in spirit. So Shabbat Shalom. Let's all say Shabbat Shalom to everybody watching. Shabbat Shalom. And now we're going to say Shabbat Shalom to a beautiful feminine presence on Shabbos, the Shabbat bride. We have candles of light, we have angels, and now we have this beautiful queen, this beautiful bride who brings a second soul to each one of us so we can really enjoy Shabbat. Page 20, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kahla, pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shahamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, השמיענו אל המיוחד. Adonai echad ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך אדוני, לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת Shabbat nekabela לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה מהירות שמי קדם מסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבת קהילה לך אדוני לקראת כלה ונשבת נקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה ונשבת נקבלה verse 5 התעוררי כי בעורק קומי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
We rise and face the back to welcome in the Shabbat bride.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך אדוני לקראת כלה Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. So last week we had a chaplain here. He was a chaplain from the Air Force. He's been a chaplain for 60 years. He was telling us all his stories. And at the end of the service, he came up to me and he said, I've been to a lot of synagogues all over Los Angeles, but this is the most Hamish one I've ever been to. What does Hamish mean? Who can tell me what Hamish means? What does Hamish mean? Yes? Comfortable, homey, warm. And this is part of a whole culture, an Ashkenazi, Eastern European culture, because I want to assure everyone on other Shabbats, we're going to talk about Sephardic culture and Mizrahi culture and Persian Jewish culture. But tonight it's about Ashkenazi culture. It's a part of a thing called Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit. So who ever heard of Yiddishkeit? What's Yiddishkeit? Yes, Rhonda. She says it's like a Jewish brain. Any other things? Who else? Somebody else. What does Yiddishkeit mean? Yes.
That's a Yiddish cup. A Yiddish cup is a Jewish brain.
That's okay.
Yes.
It's part of it. What did you say? It's the spirit of the language of Yiddish. It is actually, it's more than that. They say it's the flavor of the shtetl, it's the flavor of Talmud, it's the flavor of klezmer, it's the flavor of our food, and it's this way of looking at the world where we're all connected, and it has sometimes a bittersweet flavor because we're not always happy. We have a lot of history of some suffering, some pain, that we have hope and we have joy and we have suffering and we have some pain. And so it's this very complex mentality and culture that's also very inclusive. So that's Yiddish, part of Yiddishkeit, and that's saying good Shabbos to each other. It's being warm, it's being friendly and welcoming. And so we're going to be hearing a story a little later, and it's a very special point of view of what Yiddishkeit is. So with that, we're gonna continue with the Chatzi Kaddish.
Page 26.
יתגדל ויתקדש ברבה בעלמא דבראכירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושיערתה תושבקתה ונחמתה דהמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
So in Yiddish, the word for God is one of them is a Kodesh, HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. We say Adonai, we say Eloheinu, but people feel very close to God when they say HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. It feels like God is personally involved in our lives. So please rise for the Baruch Hu to the Kodesh Baruch Hu on page 28.
Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la la la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruch hu et Adonai המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please turn to page 30 and let's read on the bottom of the page, thanking God for day and night, which is a metaphor for the good times and the bad times. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evenings.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Haravim. Amen.
So a lot of the typical people in the shtetl, a lot of people in the shtetl didn't know Torah. This is one of the things that we say God gives us in this beautiful next prayer, Avad Olam, but they knew mitzvahs. They knew what a mitzvah was, and we know what a mitzvah is too. The good deeds, the kindness, the justice. You don't have to be a Torah scholar to do mitzvahs. Ahavat Olam, page 32.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta. Al ושוכבנו ובקומנו נעשיח בחוקיך על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נעשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגיע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגיע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגיע יומם ולילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגיע יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Please be seated.
We'll invite up our B'nai Mitzvah. Come join me at the Amud. And we're going to lead everyone in the V'ahavta.
On page 36.
You sing into that microphone. You sing into this microphone.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרת מאוד על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
You may be seated.
So in the V'ahavta prayer that we just read, one of the most important lines is teach your children diligently, as you see we are doing. But I want to assure you, you don't have to be a child to be taught or to learn. And I have a lot of my adult B'nai Mitzvah students here, adults who became Bar Bat Mitzvah. And if you are one of those, will you just raise your hand? These are people who did them, and look over there and over there. So it's never too late. And we teach class every year. So we continue now on page 40 with our song of freedom and liberation, the Micha Mocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo, osefele, malchuteka ahuvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, malchuteka ahuvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, yadalai, Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Amen.
So in the shtetl, the Shabbos was the most precious and beautiful day. No matter how poor you were, no matter how hard you worked, you saved those few pennies for a challah, for a little wine, for candles, so that you could enjoy the Shabbos. And that is why in the Talmud, they say that Shabbat, or Shabbos, is 1/60th of paradise. We continue on page 44 with Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. All together. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות הברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורות הברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, נעשור את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם.
We turn to page 46 as we rise for the Amidah, the standing prayer, where for the first time after thanking God, praising God, blessing God, we ask God for what we need. And
We
we're
invite
going-
our B'nai Mitzvah back up onto the bima. Me guys, come over here, come over here, come over here. Okay. What page?
46.
Page 43. Take your time, relax.
6.
Or 46. Come on. Okay. That one? Just come over here. Just relax. Just follow me. 1, 3.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi ki tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zoher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevii Geula Livnei Bneihem V'Man Shelo Be'aha Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai B'chayei HaKol atah Rav le'Hoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Mi Hamocha Ba'al Gevuro Umidol Melach Melech Nimid Umechayeh Umasmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lecha HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol.
We continue silently or with the beautiful words in our prayer book. You may be seated when the ark is closed. Please be seated. So this is the Shabbat before Thanksgiving. And certainly we in Los Angeles in this room have so much to be grateful for. There's a special word in Hebrew for gratitude. It's not just gratitude, it's called hakarat hatov, recognizing the good. As Jews, we look for the good wherever we can, and we are grateful for that. and the cantor is going to sing a special modim, our song of thanks, in honor of Thanksgiving.
You can follow the text on page 58. Page 58. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu, ve'imotenu le'olam va'ed. Modim anachnu lach, tzor chayenu, magen yishenu, atahu ledor vador. Modim anachnu lach, leolam va'ed. For the sun that rises in the east, for the seas that roar a prayer, for the stillness of a snowfall, for a breath of autumn air, for the grasp within my fingers, for a mind that makes me whole, for the voice that God has given me to speak the truth within my soul. Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, leolam va'ed. Ve'al ve'al nisecha shebecho yom imanu, shebecho yom imanu. Ve'al ve'al nifleotecha v'tovatecha, erev v'voker v'tzorayim. For the laughter of the children, for the way they greet the day, with their endless stream of questions, they remind us how to play. And for the ones we call beloved, who take away our fear, they tell us without saying it, remember I'm here, remember I'm here. Modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, modim anachnu lach, leolam va'ed. Tzor chayenu, magen yishenu, atahu ledor vador. Modim anachnu lach, leolam va'ed.
So before we have our Misha Berach prayer and our story, we have a special birthday that we're going to give a blessing for Penina Wiesel. You have a birthday. Come on up. Kumaher, as the rabbi, as Cantor says. Come up, Penina. She said she's good coming up, not so good coming down.
We'll escort you.
Come here. So, do we say how old you are or no?
Going to be 83.
83 on Sunday.
Wait. This was such beautiful Yiddishkeit that I'm not sure you all heard this. So Rabbi Nasser, Nanas asked her, is it okay if I say your age? She goes, I don't care. I'm going to be 83.
Which is amazing. And Penina is one of my star participants in my women's Torah study. She's always there, has great comments, great insights. And so, Penina, Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, v'Imatenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah. May God, who blessed our ancestors, our mothers and fathers through the ages, bless you now, Penina. On November 20th, will you celebrate your special birthday? May your life be filled with gratitude for all the gifts that enrich you, for your wonderful daughter, your family and friends, for the wisdom of our tradition, for all the sweetness that overflows our cups, and for the strength to meet adversity with courage. May you be blessed with a continued life of health and happiness, a life that is already crowned with good deeds, deeds of goodness, and deeds of love. And we all say together, Amen. Ken Yehi Ratzon, she says. And we say the Shehachianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Okay, thank you. Now we take a moment to remember those in our lives who need a blessing of healing. Physical healing, spiritual healing, emotional healing, and we're going to be saying our Misha Berach prayer. Before I ask you to rise and mention those in your lives that you would like blessed, I would like to mention these names who need healing. Nicole Alkov, Emily Blau, Jacob Friedman, Merlot Gadushi, Levi Jonathan, James Klein, Cindy Lederer, Michael Levi, Ronald Lanicki, Philip Marber, Annette Pansky, Trevor Sangster, Charles Schwartz, Alan Soroti, Robin Vogel, and Robin Vogel. If there's anyone in your life who you would like blessed, please stand now. And when I bring the microphone to you, say their names out loud.
Stephanie Chisholm.
Muriel Clapper. Diana Hansen.
Yoshua ben Shindel, David Aaron ben Vardit, and Elise, the daughter of Barbara.
Lisa Harrison Soltis.
Lucas Zelinsky.
Deborah Kogan, Harvey Burak, Nikki Marina.
Richard Jessel.
Grandma Nora Marsh.
Eliyahu Ben Davi.
Grandma Charlene Ackerman.
Betty Sklar. Lisa Harrison Soltz, Shifra Batmalka, and Rose Camacho.
Lauren Zera and Rosie Wiseman.
Kristen and Linda's sister.
Clementine Harris.
All the Israeli soldiers in the West Bank that are facing this horror, have lost their loved ones and their families.
Ross and Sandy Weissman. Giselle Hartman and Karen Rushfield.
Annie Leans and Daryl Montoya.
Perry Herwood. Edon Ofek, Randy Black, John Lapidus, and Barbie Wiener. Pat Feldstein.
Mike Eisenberg.
Ron Pollock.
Tracy Epstein.
Ryan Epstein. Solomon Igolnikov.
Middle of page 253.
Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Bomtsha the Silent is probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Yiddish story ever written. It's over 100 years old. I'm not going to talk a lot about it beforehand because I want to take a few minutes after to discuss it with you. It has a very controversial ending that's pretty famous, and this is what we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to start it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Here on earth, the death, is this a good sound? Okay. Here on earth, the death of Bomtsha the Silent made no impression at all. Ask anyone, who was Bomtsha? How did he live and how did he die? Did his strength slowly fade? Did his heart slowly give out? Or did the very marrow of his bones melt under the weight of his burdens? Who knows? Perhaps he just died from not eating. Starvation, it's called. Bomtsha was a human being. He lived unknown in silence, and in silence he died. He passed through our world like a shadow. When Bomtsha was born, no one took a drink of wine. There was no sound of glasses clinking. When he was confirmed, he made no speech of celebration. During his lifetime, his feet left no mark upon the dust of the streets. After his death, the wind blew away the board that marked his grave. The wife of the gravedigger came upon that bit of wood lying far off from the grave, and she picked it up and used it to make a fire under the potato she was cooking. It was just right. 3 days after Bomtsha's death, no one knew where he lay, neither the gravedigger nor anyone else. His likeness remained in no one's memory, in no one's heart. A shadow, nothing, finished. When Bomtsha was brought to the hospital, 10 people were waiting for him to die and leave them his narrow little cot. When he was brought from the hospital to the morgue, 20 were waiting to occupy his pall. When he was taken out of the morgue, 40 were waiting to lie where he would lie forever. Who knows how many are now waiting to snatch him from that bit of earth? In silence he was born, in silence he lived, in silence he died, and in even vaster silence he was put into the ground.
The Alta Kasha, the world asks the eternal question. Tra-la, tra-la, tra-la-la-la-la. And we humans answer, tra-la, tra-la-la-la-la. Freg die Welt die alte Kasche, tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la. Entfert men tra la 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 la. Lai, 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 tra la 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 la. Und als Männer will können sagen, tra la la la, tra la la la. Fragt die Welt die alte Kasche, tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la.
In silence he was born, in silence he lived, in silence he died, and even a vaster silence he was put into the ground. But in the other world, it was not so. No, in paradise, the death of Bomtsha was an overwhelming event. The great trumpet of the Messiah announced it through the 7 heavens. Bomtsha the Silent is dead. The most exalted angels with the most imposing wings flew to one another. Do you know who has died? Bomtsha, Bomtsha the Silent. And the young little angels with brilliant eyes, with golden wings and silver shoes, ran to greet Bomtsha, laughing in their joy. And their bubbling of their laughter filled all of paradise with jubilation, and God himself knew that Bomtsha the Silent was at last here. In the great gateway to heaven, Abraham, our father, stretched out his arms in welcome. Shalom Aleichem, peace be with you. And on his old face, a deep, sweet smile appeared. What exactly was going on up there in paradise? Suddenly, 2 angels came bearing a golden throne for Bomtsha to sit upon, and for his head a golden crown with glittering jewels. But why the crown? The crown and the throne already? 2 important angels asked. He hasn't even been tried before the heavenly court of justice, to which every new arrival must submit. Their voices were touched with envy. What's going on here anyway? And the other angels answered the 2 important ones that yes, Bomtsha's trial hadn't even started yet, but it would only be a formality. Even the prosecutor wouldn't dare open his mouth. Why, the whole thing wouldn't take 5 minutes. What's the matter with you, the angels asked. Don't you know whom you're dealing with? You're dealing with Bomtsha, Bomtsha the Silent. When the young angels encircled Bomtsha in love, when Avraham, our father, embraced him as a very old friend, when Bomtsha heard that a throne waited for him and for his head a crown, and that he would stand trial in the court of heaven, and no one would say a word against him? Bomtsha, exactly as in the other world, was silent. He was silent with fear. His heart shook, his veins ran with ice, and he knew this all must be a dream or simply a mistake. How often in the other world had he not dreamed that he was wildly shoveling up money from the street, that whole fortunes lay there on the street beneath his hands, and then he would wake up and find himself a beggar again, more miserable than before. How often in that other world had someone smiled at him, said a pleasant word, and then passing and turning back for another look, had seen his mistake and spat on Bomtsha. Wouldn't that just be my luck, he thought now. And he was afraid to lift his eyes, lest the dream end, lest he awake and find himself again on earth, lying somewhere in a pit of snakes. And he was afraid to make the smallest sound, to move so much as an eyelash. And when at last he was led into the great court of justice in paradise, he couldn't even say good morning. He was paralyzed with fear. And as his shrinking eyes beheld the floor of the courtroom of justice, his fear increased. The floor was of purest alabaster embedded with glittering diamonds. On such a floor stand my feet, thought Bomtsha. My feet? Who knows, he thought, for what very rich man or great learned rabbi or even a saint this whole thing is meant. The rich man will arrive soon, and then it will all be over.
Old Yiddish folk song, grab everything you can in this life. Make sure you get a shot of whiskey, because in the next world you may not get anything.
Sie ist nicht doch kein Nächten, sie ist noch nicht da der Morgen, sie ist nur da a Pizzerat, steht ihm mit Sorgen. Sie ist nicht doch kein Nächten, sie ist noch nicht da der Morgen, sie ist nur da a Pizzerat, steht ihm nicht mit Sorgen. Ai, dai, 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 ai, dai, 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 dai. Da 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 da. Habt a reiner Schnäpsel, kolz man ihr sind beim Leben, ihr Zashem auf jener Welt, wird mit Acht nicht geben. Habt a reiner Schnäpsel, kolz man ihr sind beim Leben, ihr Zashem auf jener Welt, wird mit Acht nicht geben. Ai, dai, 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 ai, dai, 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 ai, dai, 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 da 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 da, ja da 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 da.
In his fear, he did not hear when his name was called out in the pure angelic voice, Bomtsha the Silent. Through the ringing in his ears, he could make out no words, only the sound of that voice like the sound of music, of a violin. Yet perhaps he did hear, after all, catch the sound of his own name. Bomtsha the Silent? And then the voice added, to him that name is as becoming as a frock coat to a rich man. What's that? What's he saying? Bomtsha wondered. And then he heard an impatient voice interrupting the speech of his defending angel. Rich man, frock coat, no metaphors, please, and no sarcasm. He never, began the defending angel again, complained, not against God, not against man. His eyes never grew red with hatred. He never raised a protest against heaven. His sufferings were unspeakable. Here, look upon a man who was more tormented than Job. Who? Bomtsha wondered. Who is this man? Facts, facts, called the judge. Never mind the flowery business and stick to the facts, please. When he was 8 days old, he was circumcised. Okay, such realistic details are unnecessary, said the judge. The knife slipped, And he did not even try to staunch the flow of blood. Simply give us the facts. Even then, as an infant, he was silent. He did not cry out his pain. Bomtsha's defender continued. He even kept his silence, even when his mother died, and he was handed over, a boy of 13, to a snake, a viper, a stepmother. Bomtsha thought. Could they mean me? She begrudged him every bite of food, even the moldy, rotten bread and the gristle of meat that she threw at him, while she herself drank coffee with cream. Irrelevant and immaterial, said the judge. For all that, she didn't begrudge him her pointed nails in his flesh that showed black and blue through the rags he wore. In winter, in the bitterest cold, she made him chop wood in the yard, barefoot. More than once his feet were frozen, and his hands, that were so young and tender to lift the heavy logs and chop them, were in pain. But he was always silent. He never complained, not even to his father. Complain to that drunkard? The voice of the prosecuting angel rose derisively, and Bomtsha's body grew cold with the memory. He never complained, the defender continued, and he was always lonely. He never had a friend, never was sent to school, never was given a new suit of clothes, and never knew one moment of freedom. Objection, objection, the prosecutor cries out angrily. He's only trying to appeal to the emotions with these flights of rhetoric. He was silent even when his father, raving drunk, dragged him out of the house by the hair and flung him into the snowy, frozen night. He picked himself up quietly from the snow and wandered into the distance where his eyes led him. During his wanderings, he was always silent. During his agony of hunger, he begged only with his eyes. At last, on a damp spring night, he drifted to a great city, and there, on the very first night, scarcely seen, scarcely heard, he was thrown into jail. He remained silent. He never protested. He never asked, why? What for? The doors of the jail were opened again, and free, he looked for the most lowly work, and still he remained silent. Soiled by the filth of a city, spat on by unknown mouths, driven from the streets into the roadway, where as a human beast of burden he pursued his work as a porter, carrying the heaviest loads on his back, scurrying between carriages, carts, and horses, staring death in the eyes every moment. He still kept silent. He never reckoned up how many pounds he must earn to haul a penny, how many times he stumbled and fell for that penny. He never reckoned how many times he almost vomited out his very soul begging for earnings. He never reckoned on his bad luck, the other's good luck. No, never, never. He remained silent. Pretty good. Once the defending angel went on, Bomtsha crossed the roadway to the fountain for a drink. And in that moment, his whole life was miraculously changed. A splendid coach with tires of rubber plunged past, dragged by runaway horses. The coachman fallen lay in the street, his head split open. From the mouths of the frightened horses spilled foam, and their eyes were wild like fire. And inside the carriage sat a man, half alive, half dead. And Bomtsha caught up the reins and held the horses. The man who sat inside and whose life was saved, a Jew, a philanthropist, never forgot what Bomtsha had done for him. He handed him the whip of the dead driver, and Bomtsha became a coachman, no longer a common porter. And what's more, his great benefactor married him off. And what's still more, this great philanthropist provided a child for Bomtsha to look after. They mean me. I really do believe they mean me, Bomtsha encouraged himself, but he still didn't have the gall to open his eyes to look up at the judge. He remained silent even when that great philanthropist shortly thereafter went into bankruptcy without ever having paid Bomtsha 1 cent of his wages. He was silent even when his wife ran off and left him with her helpless infant. He was silent when 15 years later that same helpless infant had grown up and become strong enough to throw Bomtsha out of the house. They mean me, Bomtsha rejoiced. They really mean me. He even remained silent, continued the defending angel, when that same benefactor went out of bankruptcy and still didn't pay Bomtsha 1 cent of what he owed him. No, more than that. This person, as befits a fine gentleman who has gone through bankruptcy, again went driving the great coach. And now he had a new coachman, and Bomtsha, again a porter, in the roadway, was run over by the coachman, carriage, and horses. And still Bomtsha did not cry out. He remained silent. He did not even tell the police what had been done to him. Even in the hospital, where everyone is allowed to scream, he remained silent. He lay in utter loneliness in his cot, abandoned by the doctor and nurse because he didn't have the money to pay them. And he was silent in that awful moment just before he was about to die, and he was silent when he did die. And never one murmur of protest against man, never one murmur of protest against God. Now Bomtsha began to tremble again. He senses that after his defender has finished, his prosecutor will rise to state the case against him. Who knows what he will be accused of? The prosecutor rises. "Gentlemen," he begins in a harsh and bitter voice, and then he stops. "Gentlemen," and now his voice is less harsh, and again he stops. And finally, in a very soft voice, that same prosecutor says, "Gentlemen, as he was always silent, and now I too will be silent." The great court of justice grows very still, and at last from the judge's chair a new voice rises, loving and tender. "Bomtsha, my child, Bomtsha, my heart's child." Within Bomtsha, his very soul begins to weep. He would like to open his eyes to raise them. They are darkened with tears. It is so sweet to cry. Never until now has it been sweet to cry. "My child, Bomtsha." Not since his mother died has he heard such words. "My child, you have always suffered and you have always kept silent. There isn't one secret place in your body without its bleeding wound. And you never protested. You were always silent. There in that other world, no one understood you. You never understood yourself. You never understood that you need not have been silent, that you could have cried out, and that your outcries would have brought down the world itself and ended it. You never understood your sleeping strength. There in that other world, that world of lies, your silence was never rewarded. But here in paradise is the world of truth. Here in paradise, you will be rewarded. You, the judge, can neither condemn nor pass sentence on. For you, there is only one, there's not only one little portion of paradise, one little share. No, for you is everything. Whatever you want, everything is yours. Now for the first time, Bomtsha lifts his eyes. He is blinded by the light. The splendor of light lies everywhere, upon the walls, upon the ceiling. The angels blaze with light. The judge, "Really?" he asks, doubtful and a little embarrassed. "Really," the judge answers. "Really, I tell you, everything is yours. Everything in paradise is yours. Choose, take whatever you want. You will only take what is yours." "Really?" Bomtsha asks again, and now his voice is stronger, more assured. And the judge and all the heavenly hosts answer, "Really, really, really." "Well then," and Bomtsha smiles for the first time. "Well then, what I would like, Your Excellency, is to have every morning for breakfast a hot roll with butter." A silence falls upon the great hall, and it is more terrible than Bomtsha's has ever been. And slowly the judge and the angels lower their heads in shame at this unending meekness they have created on earth. Then the silence is shattered. The prosecutor laughs aloud, a very bitter laugh.
Fragt die Welt die alte Kasche, tra la 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 la, tra la 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 la.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What do you think it means? Do you know? No one knows? What? God is just and we reap what we sow? Do people agree with that?
What did she say?
God is just and we reap what we sow. No. What do you think it means?
That if you don't speak up,
When you don't speak up, if you don't speak up when you do, it's a surprise to people. Yes? Okay, people are so used to what they have in life that they just ask for what they're used to. So does it change your attitude if I tell you that Peretz was a radical socialist? He came from a Hasidic background and he was a radical socialist. So what do you think he's saying to us and to God and to the angels and to certain teachings? Nobody has any opinion. You're Jews. You got to have opinions. Don't be afraid. There's no wrong answer. Okay, Rabbi Davids, what do you think?
One might assume that the author was saying, spending an entire life waiting for that heavenly court and a warm reception was no way to live. That people need to be able to enjoy life when it exists, and it is no comfort to say later you'll get reward.
Later you'll get reward. Okay, any other opinion on what it means? I think that's so interesting. It's a very curious ending. They're ashamed because it's an indictment of God and the angels. This is what they celebrate. This is the goal that they gave for humanity, to be so downtrodden that their idea of paradise is a piece of bread and butter. It's about breaking the spirit of humanity through mythology, through religion, and he says, you could have spoken and changed the world. We are supposed to be speaking up. Is Bomtsha a hero or is Bomtsha a shlemiel? Why didn't he speak up? Why did he never question anything? This is what even the angels, which I can say are the rich, the removed, are so out of touch with humanity, so out of touch with suffering that they think it's an attribute to be silent. They're so out of touch with the pain of humanity that they don't even understand what this person went through. So I think it's an indictment. It's a very profound indictment of the angels, of God, and of meekness. And in this day and age, we should not be Bomtshas. That's why I read this story. And we can't keep saying, okay, it's not that bad. Okay, I'll just get up and keep going. We should not be Bomtsha. We should not look for, because by the time we get to paradise, we won't even know what paradise is if we don't try to create it here. So thank you so much for the story. You can talk about it later. Shabbat Shalom. Just a few announcements, and then we're going to conclude our service. And please stay for Kiddush and Motzi and a little Oneg Shabbat. This Monday night on Zoom is Saba Sumek, who's going to talk about what's going on in Iran. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. And on December 4th, we're having this amazing author flying from New York. Andrew Porwancher is his name, but he's written this new book called The Jewish World of Alexander Hamilton. And he'll be in conversation with a history professor from USC about, was Alexander Hamilton Jewish? And he's been talking all over the country, and it's very, very interesting. So we hope you'll join us for that. And now we're going to turn to our moments of memory and prepare for Kaddish. We begin by remembering those who are observing Shloshim, the first 30 days. If you are in mourning in the first 30 days of your mourning, please rise now. We remember those: Rebecca Brode, Norma Bubar, David Dragon, Shirley Baskin-Famillion, Latifa Gadushi, Magdalena Gilbert, Howard Goldfeeder, Harvey Cadden, Barry Robert Katz, Regina Kleiner, Sidney Gary Morantz, Philip Marber, Reza Nakshin, Susan Packel, Efim Rudin, Daisy Schott, Mordechai Schlush. We now remember those who are observing a Yortzeit this week. If you are observing a Yortzeit, please rise. Remember Sarah Nazarian Akhtarzad, Philip Bartmasser, Samuel Berkowitz, Bernice Bernstein, George Barris, Beatrice Blackman, Estelle Bloomfield, Bloom Bovell, Jack Broder, Rose Caspery, Mignon Chasin, Maurice Chayo, Florence Cohen, Mildred Connie, Judy Corman, Saul Cuttrow, Anson Dreisen, Francine Feynman, William Fenning, Eli Fishman, Joseph Foreman, Robert Frankel, Renee Bowden Friedman, Irving Gerstein, Arnold Gold, Edie Gordon, Lazarus Moses Gordon, Abraham Gordon, David Greenberg, Betty Greenberg, James Greenwald, Inez Grover, Marvin Ginn, Marvin Ginn, Edith Ginn, Carlotta Gutworth, Yafa Ha-Nazar Shadeh, Gerald Heyman, Jack Hirsch, Francis Eisman, Shirley Jacobson, Margaret Jashny, Herbert Kahn, Tzvi Carney, Najat Katan, Andrew David Kent, Eric Clapper, Marvin Komorski, Lillian Kozlow, Edward Lash, Herman Ira Lawrence, Charles Leonard Levin, Mort Lowy, Sylvia Lurie, Sion Makani, Estelle Markowitz, Seymour Markowitz, Edward Massey, Mildred Brick Mayer, Robert Mendelson, Carol Miller, Jay Maloney, Emmanuel Morchi, Max Neiman, Arthur Pearl, Akiba Plager, Spencer Pritikin, Fran Rappaport, Benjamin Rubin, Lester Riskind, Philip Riskind, Jack Robbins, Dora Levy Roddy, Sanford Rosenbaum, Ruth Rosenberg, Harry Rosenberg, Elias Victor Rosenkrantz, Mildred Firth Rosenkrantz, Leah Sauter, Stanley Schlesinger, Harriet Francis Schwartz, James London Shandling, Kate Schwartzman Shapiro, Jean Shapiro, Bernard Bud Shields, Barbara Silvers, Isaac Skluth, Bessie Sommer, Walker Strauss, Annette Sussman, Julius Teifeld, Beverly Verani, Wally Weisenberg, Blanche Weiner, Geraldine Wilner, Valeria Wolf, Joan Zellickson. Are there any other names to add? Thank you. Thank you. We also remember those who gave their lives defending the United States of America and the State of Israel, those who have died in senseless terrorism and war and disease, and those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. Oh, there's someone else. Oh, so sorry. Thank you. Sorry. We remember all of them and take them as our own as we rise and turn to page 298 for Kaddish. Not 294, I'm sorry. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dekal Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'arlach li'olam u'lnei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Ta'amiram v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlam Rabbah min Shemai, v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael. Imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
And we invite invite the B'nai Mitzvah families to come up around the challahs. Come on up.
Oh my God.
All right, we raise our cups. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon inchilanu. Zikaron Maaseh Bereshit, Ki hu Yom Techilah Lemikra Kodesh, Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim, Ki banu v'achartach, Yotanu Kidashta, Mikol Shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. We want to thank our amazing musicians, Bill Beck, who was at the keyboard, Leo Shalyapov on clarinet, and Duduk at saxophone, Hope Easton on cello. Thank you so much for bringing all of this beautiful music to life. Next Friday night, there's no service in person. We'll be online. You can watch it. It'll be pre-recorded. And 2 weeks from tonight, I know I'll be back here with Rabbi Shapiro for Erev Shabbat, so please come back and join us. Shabbat shalom.
And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You're welcome. See you tomorrow.
Oh, you got it?